Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today we're going to get into a real breakup story that was sent into writemac.com. If you have a story you want to share and you want me to break down for you, send it into writemac.com. I've been off the airwaves for quite a while, taking a rest, readjusting to living in Northern California in the cold. But it's been good. So today we're going to talk about how real breakups are different than the movies. I've talked about this in past episodes, and we're going to readdress it today. And then after I get through the talking points, I will break down the breakup story that just came in, and then we'll get into some Chat GPT breakup stories where you can see the difference in something that is created for a TV or drama purposes that just doesn't line up with what really happens. Smokey the Cat, yes, I am. Chico, California. I took up an office here, so I will be available to you Californiaites at better hours. And if you ever want to come up, I got an office here now. So if you want to do some hypnotherapy, that's what I'm going to be practicing in my office primarily, but also any other things that you need with coaching or relationship stuff, I'm here for you. And I'll be here for the year. And then what? We'll reassess. All right. So I hope San Diego's treating you well, Smokey the Cat. And Anna, welcome. So let me get into, like I said, today we're going to talk about how real breakups are different than the movies. Number one, it's the movies, drama mixed with good endings and dreamy outcomes. So if you watched any of these relationships, romantic comedies, we don't want a bad ending. We want them to get back together. We want them to find a way back home. And then it's not that simple. It really isn't. And I wish it was. I wish it was that way, but it's not. It's not. Real life and real people are different than the movies. 100%. And the stories that happen in these movies, let me just move this real quick. I think that's affecting yeah. Real stories, which I'm going to unpack a breakup in a minute. That's a real story that came in. You'll know the difference. But what happens is a lot of people that watch a lot of movies, and then they get in their first serious breakup situation. What they don't realize is it's not the movies. So, and it's not your friend's relationship. So whatever happened in your friend's relationship is not going to necessarily happen for you. So there's a lot of good movies out there. And the funny thing is if you watched movies before you got in a bad breakup, you're like, well, wait a minute, if I just do it, and you don't even know subconsciously that you're copying some movie move with flowers, cards, candy, the letter. You just think, well, that's what people do, right? So the dreamy outcomes, the drama mixed with good endings, it can happen. But probably the percentages are against that in most breakups. And then also you got to keep into account your breakup's different than that movie. Number two, they just magically meet someone new in a week. So this is something I've noticed specifically in Eat, Pray, Love with Julia Roberts, the series You on Netflix, which was very popular. So in Eat, Pray, Love, if you guys don't know that movie, Julia Roberts basically breaks up, and I believe she was married. And within months, she ends up with a younger guy in his late 20s. She meets through an acting guild. And I don't know how much older she is in the movie, but she's quite a bit older than the guy, which is even something that's not that common. It happens, but it's not that common. And then she had to break up with him and let him off the hook. But she literally walked into a new relationship that was with a highly attractive guy to her, younger, and then she kind of had to let go. That's not a common situation for someone that comes out of a long-term marriage to just rebound out into that, not, let alone someone that's good looking with status and younger. Can happen. It's just not very common. And then she had to let him go. right? He was the one that wanted to stay with her. And then the movie You, this guy just constantly is meeting new women, new relationships. He's coming out of breakups. He's also a murderer, a covert execution style murderer. So if you've never seen this series, You, and I'm not suggesting it to anyone, I'm just saying how movies are, right? And there was one particular part in the series where he breaks up with his long-term girlfriend, and the neighbor next door runs into him, and they have a short rendezvous for 2 months, and she just so happens to be single and interested in him. Those are the kinds of things in movies that are just total bullshit. It's like you're in an apartment building, you break up. The odds that the person next to you or on your floor is single and interested in you is going to be higher if you're in a really good place. But overall, it's just not that common, right? Especially, and looks and makes the movie better or makes the TV show better because it makes the thing move. That's why you never see a movie with no contact, right? So number 3, they never mention no contact in movies too much. It's just never mentioned. That would be a boring movie, right? And so then when you're in a breakup and you're in no contact, you're like, I've never seen this before. Usually this is what they do to get the people back. Da, 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 da. There is a little bit of it in the movie Swingers with Vince Vaughn, where they talk about not calling the person and this and that, but the guy still battles it. And it's more of a realistic situation because this guy's not meeting other women. He's not a highly attractive guy. And I don't mean that in a bad way. He's just not a movie star looking guy. And he's bigger. He's struggling in his life. So the breakup's really hard. That's how breakups usually are. Usually you don't break up with someone when you're at your top. There's a lot of times where someone's maybe at their top and the other person's not at their top, and it makes the breakup more difficult. And so that's why I said in these movies, a lot of times when people just rotate out or meet someone that's a really good catch or really good looking, it's just not that simple or easy to put into words, right? There's a way longer 6 months to a year or 9 months or 10 months of struggling, of being sad, of being angry, of being frustrated that the movie doesn't really touch on, or those movies don't touch on. So, number 4, the people are always good looking and don't have to worry about losing weight or hitting the gym. So a lot of times in movies, not always, the person that breaks up isn't like, oh, I got to go to the gym. They've already been going to the gym, or they don't have insecurities about being single because they have some sick career. That, when I say sick, cool career, like they work for Rolling Stone, they're a writer, they're a photographer, they're obviously successful. What I always think is interesting about movies too is that you never see people with money problems. There's movies like that, but they always find a way to overcome, or they find a way to pay their bills. So when people are out of their breakups in these kind of romantic comedies, it's built in with some kind of career that's steady and stable, which isn't the case in all breakups, right? All right. So number 5, there's usually an ending. So this is really interesting. Any movie or TV show has an ending. And that seems simplistic, right? You're like, well, of course, Mac. But there are cliffhangers, right? For a series or a movie where they're going to have number 2. A lot of breakups have cliffhangers. In psychology, we call that an open loop, meaning it never closed. A lot of breakups, people feel like, I didn't get closure. I don't really understand why we broke up. That's a very common theme. Movies don't do that. They end somehow where the person meets up and they make peace with each other. I think there was a Catherine Zeta-Jones movie years back where it's called Rebound. Again, she was an older, highly attractive woman. I think the guy was younger. She ends up breaking up with him. But at the end of the film, where they're both, upset and he's heartbroken, they meet up for lunch and just make it right and go their separate paths. You with me? So it's like, it's not the movies. And I'm going to, like I said, when we reveal the breakup story that we're going to unpack today, and then I'll go into Chat GPT and show you how movie script stories come out, it's going to be very apparent. Number 6, they seem to always come back. So in breakup movies, to me, it always seems like the person will come back or at least give you a second chance. The person might blow that chance, but there's always a second chance. In real breakups, that is not the case. There's a lot of people that come to me like, what's the chances here? There's always a chance. There's no one predicting 100% what's going to happen. But there's certain scenarios where you cheated, where you're broke, where the relationship's been done for 6 months, that the person's probably not going to come back anytime soon. If you really dig, you know that. And that's not something to run from. That's something to improve from. That's a rally cry. That's for you to say, wait a minute, I got to get my shit together. Right? A lot of your insecurity in your relationship is not being happy with where you're at. And not being happy with where you're at is taking a look at actually the environment you're in and the subculture you live within. So, for example, if you live in London or New York compared to a farm town in Timbuktu, Nebraska, your status, your success in that area is going to be different based on those things. And what happens as human beings is when you're in a relationship, if you're not successful or you don't have some status or significance within your environment or environments, which mean work, family, and home, then it's going to affect your relationship because you're going to be very insecure. Wait, this person's doing really well, and I need them. I need them more than ever before. So if you break up with them when you're down and out, you're low on money, you don't like your job, it's significantly more difficult. And what happens is people will come to me and they're still focusing on getting that person back when they need to get back on deck. And whatever that is for them. That means that, hey, I need to get refocused on my career, my goals. I need to start doing some volunteer work. You're obsessed with your results. You're also obsessed with the fact that this person's going to make everything better. And that's just not true. And that gets ignored in the movie sometimes. And there's just a lot of situations where the person's probably not going to come back. And actually, even if the person came back, you'll break up over the same things, or it's probably not a relationship that's really been that good for you. It's not good that you get back together. I haven't seen a lot of movies where the person just doesn't meet someone for 6 months or a year, takes a break. That would be a boring movie, right? But the reality is sometimes when you come out of a long-term relationship, and I've been in this situation before, you need to lick your wounds, you need to heal, you need to go through the grief process and not date sometimes. You know, your friends just want you to get back out there. Your family just, hey, I have someone for you to meet. You're just not feeling it. That's okay. You can take 6 months, 8 months, 3 months, if that's how you're feeling, and reestablish, hey, what's wrong here? And who do I want to be with in the future? Because if you just jump into something the next time out of a 4-year, 5-year, 6-year, what I've found is when people come out of a long-term relationship, and let's just say 3 years plus, okay, at this point in the 21st century, 3 years plus might be long-term. If you get into a new relationship and that new person looks better than your past partner, or is better with money, or doesn't have an alcohol problem, you're going to elevate that person instantly. What do I mean by that? You're going to put them on a pedestal like, oh my God, they're so much better than my ex. The problem is that you'll also groove into some things that your ex allowed you to do that this new person might not like. And the person might not stick with you the way the other person stuck with you for 3-4 years. And maybe 6 months down the road, a year down the road, they break up with you and you're like, you're beside yourself. Like, what? I don't get it. Because you just stayed in a relationship that you were unhappy with. So you look at it like, wow, why did this person break up with me? The reality is this is a new relationship. You just got into it really quick. And you assume that, you know, every relationship is going to be long-term. And the reality is when you get back out there and you get single again, it's going to take you a little bit of time. And it's good that you're selective and it's good that you're picky. All right. So let's get into the last part. 7, my favorite breakup movie. So I thought I'd just throw this in and feel free to throw it in on the comments. Anyone that's on deck right now. Kyle, how you doing, bud? Paltry Flowers, always a pleasure. High Fidelity with John Cusack, who's not necessarily my favorite actor or anything, but that movie's interesting because he's a record shop owner. I think Jack Black's in it also. And what he does is he has one breakup and then he goes through all his other breakups of like 6 or 7 different women. And again, this is movie elements because it's funny because his record shop literally looks like it makes no money, but it's cool. Right? You own a record shop in a city, in a downtown, and you're doing your thing, but we don't really know The record shop's always empty, how he's making his bills or paying his rent. And then these women that you look back on that he dated, they're all very different. One of them's rich, one of them's highly attractive, one of them's more into music, and he kind of just goes through them all. What I liked about the movie is just the fact that he's readdressing what he did wrong in some of the breakups or why they didn't stick with him. But at the end of the movie, just like all these movies, he gets to meet his ex again and they kind of reunite in a good way. I like that movie quite a bit. If you want to check that out, High Fidelity, let me know in the comments if you saw that movie and like it, or if you haven't seen it yet and you want to check it out. It's an older one, but I think it's an interesting one when you're in a breakup. One that I used to like, I haven't watched it in years. I think it's called When Fools Rush In, Matthew Perry and Salma Hayek. I think I just liked it because I was attracted to Salma Hayek, right? And they were in Vegas and they get married and stuff. I don't think I would find that movie as good, but I remember when I first saw it when I was younger, I was like, wow. So sometimes you like breakup or relationship movies just because you're attracted to the woman, right? Or one of the characters, which isn't real, right? So number 8, why real breakups are different, the nuanced stories and perspectives. So if you watched my channel over the years or you've written your own, a real breakup story is completely different. There's way more nuance. There's little things involved. The details are more surprising. The things that people care about. It's just not rose petals and wine glasses throughout the whole relationship. And I'm going to tell you right now, how the relationship starts is usually how it ends. So any of these little issues you have in the beginning that you don't like, 2-3 years later, they grow and bloom, and then that's usually what you break up over. Now, in some relationships, you can start out great, and someone can have an alcohol problem in year 5. Someone can have a money problem in year 5. Someone can have family issues where they just have to move to another state, okay? Those are possible, but a lot of times I've noticed a lot of the stuff that you deal with up front that you don't like and you continue to deal with just becomes more and more of a problem that you just put to the side or try to check out on, and eventually you just lose it and break up. All right, this is an opportunity. If anyone has any questions before I get into the story, go ahead and shoot in the comments. Salma Hayek. I knew I said that wrong. Salma Hayek, yeah. I was like, why am I saying that wrong? Someone will correct me in the comments, right? Salma Hayek. Shows you how much I follow Hollywood, right? Salma Hayek. Yeah, she's beautiful. So, without further ado, let's break down a real breakup story that just came in. And I'll start. I was in a relationship with P for 7 months and broke up. Okay. 7 months. 7 months, just keep in mind that you don't know each other completely well. And the fact that you broke up, sometimes you're still getting to know each other and people surprise you in month 6, 7, 8, even in 1 year. You get 4 or 5 years, you get a pretty good gist of who someone is. Just before New Year's, we met online. He will be 39 in April. I'm 34. So nice clean age gap in your 30s. That's doable. That sounds good to me. He lives on his own. That's a plus at 39. He has a 19-year-old daughter who lives with his parents and sometimes with friends. Okay. His dad sold his flat they had been living in since 2001 last year. And since then, his parents and daughter have been living in his sister's home pending the search for a new home. Okay, so that's an interesting situation. Well, right off the bat, it seems like their family works together, which is a good thing. In a nutshell, there are family problems, and his mom has been staying with him recently until she gets her flat sorted out. Okay, well, I mean, it's his mom, and if she's going through problems, this is what's tough when you're in a relationship. Mom comes first for a lot of people. So you could feel like you're at the back of the bus and you're not getting the attention you deserve or want as an adult or as his significant other. But people put things into priorities, and sometimes mom comes first. P hasn't spoken nor seen his daughter's mother in years, but at times, though, rarely his daughter goes there. But for most part, had been brought up by P and his family. P told me he hasn't had many girlfriends. He lived by himself since a young age and in his flat for 10 or so years. Okay. So that sounds like that's a choice. It sounds like he's taking responsibility for his daughter. You don't really know the background with the mother, so you can't really judge that. It seems like they've gotten her to this point, and sounds like he's doing the best he could. We had a good relationship, saw each other about twice a week. That's usually a sweet spot, 2 to 3 times a week, seeing each other. People move in together and things get real quick, as I say, because sharing bills and sharing the bathroom and having bad days and not looking your best when you're around each other 24/7, it's a lot different than 2 or 3 times a week. So I hope you enjoyed that 2 days a week. Never argued, and things just seemed to flow naturally. That's the way it should be. I noticed that he had been quite stingy. So cheap, unconsciously or consciously, with his money from the beginning and throughout our relationships. Some people are just like that. Not personal. It's just the way they were brought up or the way they are. And stingy, I would say that stingy is different in the sense that you believe the person has money to share or has the ability to pay for you or to help you out, but won't. There's people that can be cheap but fair. In other words, they're really cheap. They really watch their money, but if they need to help you out with something or you go to dinner together, they can split the bill. They're not trying to get over on you. So, but the term stingy to me means you feel like he has the money to do nicer things with or to be more generous with, and he's not giving it to you. Now, here's the thing. If someone's stingy, but they don't make a lot of money, they just pay their rent barely, and you're in a relationship with them, you got to understand they don't really have a lot of extra money to give. Or when someone has a kid, they're probably always a little bit more reserved with their money because they know that, the kid might need braces. They need a little bit of a cushion in case something goes down with the kid. So that's understandable too. The idea that you think he's stingy unconsciously means that that's just baked into his personality. If that's something you really don't like 7 months in, I would say at 39 years old, it's probably not going away. So you can accept that or you can move on from it. With his money from the beginning throughout our relationship, I mostly paid for things and took him home when he didn't have a car and mostly went to one another's places. So the only thing with that is if you make good money or you have the extra money to do it and it's your pleasure to do so, that's up to you. That's your morals and values. You're allowed to create your own. A lot of people impose values and morals on other people on the internet. But the reality is if it's your pleasure or you have the extra money, you have a trust fund, you make a lot more money than him, there's a lot of women out there that are okay with paying for their boyfriend's stuff. Now, if you feel like you're being taken advantage of, then you need to speak up. If you feel like it's gone too far, then you need to speak up. A lot of women like to hint. Well, I've kind of told them, tell them directly. Hey, look, I don't like paying for things all the time, and I'm not going to drive you everywhere. What's going on? What's your financial situation? When he didn't have a car, okay, this likely because he didn't have much money. So that's what I'm saying. So is him not having much money because he doesn't have a job at all, because he's settled for a job that's not really well paid? So a lot of times people will settle for a financial lifestyle that is very comfortable and that they know they can make the bills. So let's just say someone makes $2,000 a month and their rent's $800 and they live in a crappy little studio, but it's their crappy little studio and they've done it for 10 years. They're dialed into that lifestyle and they don't really see anything that they need outside of that. Now, if you enter into their realm and you're like, wait a minute, this apartment's not very nice. You're a smart person. Why don't you want to make more money? Because they're comfortable. They're surviving. They're doing okay. And so when they get a new partner or something like that opens up their eyes to maybe nicer restaurants or doing funner things, they look at it like, well, this really safe lifestyle that I've had for a long time, I'm comfortable with it. And that's okay. And maybe he's not the one for you if that's a problem already. When we met, and by the way, money problems, if you start the relationship with money problems, they're not going away. And if you aid the person, right, when you get it, like, for example, let's say the person comes into the relationship with no job and no savings, and you start out paying their car payment, you start out paying for all the dinners, Now you've created an expectation on the other end that you're going to do that all the time. And so if that gets to a point where that gets old or it gets exhausting or you get bitter about it, you need to speak up or you need to move on. When we met, he worked in a construction, electric, and has been training towards his level 2 qualification, although this is on pause. Okay, so he's making some kind of progress. That's good. There's a finish line of where he's going to be making more money in the future. That's very good. Before we met and started up again and completed it around October. He had a break with work around November as the project had finished and the place was a bit toxic and was due to begin a new job in the same industry January 2024, which is now, right? Yeah, he also brought an apartment. It says brought, but I'm going to assume bought. It's just a typo. Bought an apartment flat 50-50 with his business partner and friend last year. I think this is due to be completed around this time and is likely to be moving into a flat in April 2024, which gives him the opportunity to eventually buy it, which is his plan. So even if he's stingy, at least he's making moves that are looking towards the future of being in a more comfortable position, right? He's not a loser. He's actually making progress, right? He has some finish lines in place that are admirable. So it's not that he just doesn't have much money. It's right now he doesn't have much money, but he has some goals and finish lines to make more money, to do better, to own a flat. So that's very good. It's promising. He also plans to complete his level 3 down the line to become an electrician. Outstanding. That's a great career in any part of the world, right? And his 5-year plan. So he has a plan. Women love guys with plans. He hopes to have a lifestyle where he has a place in the Caribbean. Said he has dreamed about that since he was a child. Good to have dreams. Good to have big finish lines. I really like that. And can go back and forth as he wishes to have a beach house one day. One time we had more in-depth conversation about it, and he spoke about this lifestyle. As the future is uncertain, it is difficult to say whether this would impact on the relationship, but I did bring up in general that should we have children? So here's where all right, so this is good you wrote this out. This is what women do a lot of times, and I don't mean this in a negative way. Should we have children? Do you want to have children? So instead of saying, should we have children, but deep down you're like, I would like to have children. You're 34 years old. You got some time limits. This is a sweet spot for women to kind of really think about this. If you want to have children, you don't need to demand him to have them, but you need to make it apparent, like, hey, look, I'm 34 years old. I'm looking at having kids and I want to have kids. What you're doing is suggesting a way to have him maybe be interested. My guess is, before I read more, at 39 years old, if he already has had one and he's had trouble supporting that one or it's been really tough, a lot of guys will say, no, I don't even want to have kids. Now, if you're 34, that can be really deflating. It may be difficult for us. So just to finish up, but I did bring up the general that should we have children? It may be difficult for us of going back and forth for 6 weeks or so, he stated. He agreed, but said we could take a baby or children traveling. Okay, so he's worried about the traveling to the Caribbean. Of course, his Caribbean dream sounds great. Who doesn't want to have this? But seemed to say that I didn't seem enthusiastic about it. Well, it's not your dream, right? Is it? Not everyone wants to live in the tropics. I love the beach. Not everyone does. Some people like the mountains. Some people like the desert. So the fact that you weren't enthusiastic about it, you haven't spent time on this dream, and maybe you just don't like the beach. And that's okay. When I pointed out that going on holidays in general with the family and seeing the world in that way, as opposed to actually buying a place or beach house, he said that was boring, but then said he didn't mean it like that. When I questioned him, it is not exactly set in stone. There hasn't been any pressure for this, but he knows that my preference is to have children, start a family in the next 2 years. All right, so just be very clear on that, clear and clean. And if he's not up for that, because the reason why you're saying the next 2 years is because your biological clock's ticking. That's a real clock ticking. I understand where you're coming from. Women are very sensitive in this age range. He was quite frazzled by this conversation afterwards regarding lifestyle, future goals. However, we agreed to see how things go and focus on the now, and things seemed as normal. Yeah, I would say that, especially with the situation with his job, and possibly making more money, you're not at a point to entertain the Caribbean yet. It's cool that that's a goal. You're not at a point to maybe entertain a child yet, but to have the conversation's good. And that's a conversation that can change. So women can be very sensitive to the fact that he seems open to that, but then, when it comes to 6 months later and you're like, all right, I want to start trying, and he says no, it's a really tough position because, like I said, you feel like there's a literal clock in the background. Then the festive season came and we saw each other more and had a great time. On the 29th, December just gone, I dropped him home after he stayed with me, and he mentioned that January is going to be a busy time for him, especially at the start, and we may have to see each other less. Okay, so that sounds like that lines up with his job change. That's not personal. That's work and circumstances, and he's making it apparent to you up front so it doesn't blindside you. It's good communication. He also said the relationship is a bit of a distraction, that he needs to save his money, stating that he has been coming to mine by cab and train. Okay, that'll irritate you. So he's just telling you what his priorities are. If he has this Caribbean dream in his mind, he's been stingy for a long time. This is probably going to hurt you because you feel like present moment he should be able to afford a cab or a train to come see you. I would know where you're coming from. I understood that we would see each other less, but I didn't appreciate the distraction part he said and about saving money. What he's saying is my priority is to save money first and foremost. I think what's frustrating to you is that the money's not being saved for a family for you two. The money's being saved for a Caribbean beach house. That's why you send me your story, because I just broke that down real quick. As the vast majority of the time I've been taking him home, etc., he should look at other things he is spending his money on. Well, here we go. So when you get deeper into a relationship and you aren't there yet because you haven't moved in together or took the next step, possibly marriage and kids, you are going to care about how he spends his money, especially if he makes more than you. I pulled him up on this and asked whether he is even ready for a relationship if this is the case. He said sorry and that his choice of words were poor and he meant in general. I feel like that's good communication on his end. He apologized and there's a misunderstanding. And a lot of times people misconstrue a misunderstanding for someone's intent or lack of care or lack of listening. Sometimes it's just a misperception or misunderstanding. Earlier that day, he said he has to be extra tight with his money now. We had a conversation that evening. He's been tight with his money from Jump Street. So the idea that now it's bothering you, this is what I talked about in the beginning of relationships. The things that bother you can get worse and worse. Money's always going to be a problem, especially if you want kids and a family, because you want a responsible earner. And like I said, it seems to me like what's bothering you is that his dreams a Caribbean beach house and your dreams a family with kids. And if he's saving up for that rather than kids and a family, then you're on two different lanes. You're in two different lanes. We had a conversation that evening. I mentioned that I get the way he is determined, focused, wanting to be best he can because all these opportunities are coming up for him, which is really good. I'm established in my career, overall settled, and he is not. We messaged one another later on, and I wanted to confirm with him whether he said that he wasn't ready or able to be in a relationship. He said, no, babe, but it's something to take note of for me personally. Also, that our conversation made me realize that maybe I cannot commit to this relationship anymore at this time. Okay, that hurts, but that seems like honest communication. I think he's telling you exactly what he feels at that moment. We had a phone call and he said for us not to throw 7 months away like that, to give him time, a few weeks, and then we can come together and see whether we want to continue, how to move forward, and that we may have something special. A lot of times I don't recommend taking a break. But in this particular case, I think if he's been on the sidelines in relationships for quite a long time, he's got work, like a real thing where work's taking up more of his time, but at the same time, he's making a lot of progress in that area. I think this is good communication with you. I don't know what I would want to narrow down a few weeks to a week or 2 weeks to collect his thoughts. But I don't think this is one of those things at that point when this came up to run for the hills. He's also being very mature in the sense, like, instead of being impulsive like we do when we're young, he's 39. I know where he's coming from. I'm in my early 40s now, and I get it. He's saying like, let me take a week. I don't want to throw this away, but I've had this thought, but let me get a little bit more time. I don't think you need a few weeks. I would say a week or 5 days. Also commented on how kind I have been to him. And obviously doesn't want to make long-term decisions based on a short conversation we had. Very mature. Very mature. And I think that's a good thing. I messaged him later saying, hey, I've enjoyed our time together and respect you as a person. I want you to be happy, but it seems like you need to go away and be on your own for a while to figure out what you want. Okay, so you wrote that you should have just let him get his week to get back to you. You basically are writing him a farewell here. I need someone who's completely in, 100% wants to be with me. Okay, so this always happens. Because I've had a lot of coaching clients that are women 32 to 35, 36, and they get very anxious. And they end up with a guy that doesn't want to jump into marriage, kids, a house, mortgage, all that stuff. And that's what they really want. And so when they get to that point, all of a sudden they do these ultimatums, demands, and it scares the guy away. Because most guys will not want to have gun to the head relationship. And I'm not saying you're a gun to the head here, but basically, like, this is what I want. I want this 100% right. It's going to be really difficult for you. I know your biological clock's ticking, but he's looking at it like, we've been together 7 months. I'm not going to commit to marriage and kids yet. We probably got another 6 months to a year before he's going to maybe get in that zone. You, on the other hand, want that commitment right now. I know where you're coming from, but if you start a new relationship, and this guy seems pretty good. Okay, he's stingy, but it doesn't mean he's not like just blowing money on gambling or drugs or alcohol. He's actually saving it to buy a flat. He takes care of his kid. He looks out for his mom. This idea that, you need to make that apparent that you want kids and a family, but the idea that you need to know right now, it's a little heavy for a lot of guys. And it's hard on your end. I get it, because you want that guarantee. Therefore, take all the time you need, and when you wish to rekindle to pursue the relationship with me, let me know. Well, that's a good close. So let me just read that again. Hey, I've enjoyed the time together. That's past tense, like you're letting someone go, and respect you as a person. I want you to be happy, but it seems like you need to go away. That's an assumption that you're making, and be on your own for a while and figure out what you want. I need someone who is completely in, 100% wants to be with me. Therefore, take all the time you need when you want to rekindle and pursue this relationship. Like I said, good close. He messaged back, thank you. I really appreciate this. Grateful. And you understand. I agree. You deserve someone who is secure in the situation, as you are also. Unfortunately, I can't say this is me at this specific time. I appreciate you and value the time we spend together. I guess what you suggested is the best way forward for you, and therefore we will go forward like that too. We left it like that. That's very good communication on his end. He also is honoring what you said to him. He also messaged the next day saying Happy New Year, and the recent message said, if you're happy to, I would appreciate if we can meet up and have coffee and chat about everything. I will need a little time as getting back to work this week, plus have other stuff to do. I hope you're okay. I think that's a kind and good message, and that's good to touch base. This guy's a good communicator. I don't say that often. I thanked him for the offer and mentioned whether we could possibly have this conversation by phone. And he said, yes, that's fine. See how you feel another time. Just thought it would be a good idea. Let's see what happens. I asked him if there was anything in particular that he wanted to speak about, given that I think we said most everything. He didn't answer. I called him a couple. You should have just met for the coffee. Now you're making it more difficult than it needs to be. And now you want to premise. This is where men get just have the conversation. Now you're creating text messages and you're creating a buildup towards it. The reason why I say getting the coffee is better, being in each other's space and in person is better. Always is. And you can feel whether that's going in one direction or the other better than a phone call or texting. He didn't answer. I called him a couple days later. We spoke, and he said something about him going to be really busy with all the tasks he needs to do, and that he only meant that he needs time, or that we would see each other less just in January. He said January is always a big month for him. In a previous conversation, he said he doesn't know how less we would see each other, but mentioned something like once a month, or having a special relationship arrangement where we both give each other space to sort out what what we need, but then quickly said, but you don't need space and time. I think he's just trying to figure out how to place his job in his career, because it sounds like he's taking on new hours and new responsibilities. That's legitimate. That's not just him making shit up. And put the time in with you. Bottom line is, what's going to reestablish where you're at, and this might sound shallow to you, is good intimacy. I'm sorry. Doesn't mean that that has to always be the case, but when you meet up, if you're going to go back, like if it's going to be temporary for January, that he's just busy and he's like, look, I think we can only meet up once or twice a week. And you're like, we can just do this over the phone. It's like, you need to, if you want to reestablish, especially with a man that doesn't have a lot of free time, a relationship for the future. And I'm not saying you have to. This is just me unpacking this with you. You can certainly move on and say, this guy's not committed enough, nor giving me enough time. It's not his intention. It's not personal. He's just putting his job first and his finances first. And really, if he doesn't do that now, in a year, it'll be a problem in your relationship. So it's pretty responsible of him. But on the flip side, you don't want to have phone conversations in lieu of in-person conversations. Because if you have good intimacy, and intimacy can be many things, right? I don't mean that to be the one big thing. It really will carry weight for you to strengthen your relationship, and also for him to want to meet you halfway on that bridge with marriage and kids eventually. This idea where you just want some kind of commitment over the phone, it's gonna push him away. Also, that maybe I would be better with someone else, as it wouldn't be fair. More recently, he said that our goals don't seem to align, as you want to have a family and children in 1 to 2 years, and I don't know how that would fit into my plan. All right, right there. Okay. That probably hurt you. But that's extremely good communication. Extremely good communication. He's telling you the absolute truth. That's the trade-off. One of you would have to give up one or the other. And I think deep down, you probably think, wow, this guy wants a beach house in the Caribbean. And I want kids and a family. They are pretty different. If he wins the lottery or he makes a lot of money, they could come together in the future. But as of right now, you also have this 1 to 2 year window. I think that's scaring him away a little bit. And I don't think that's your fault. That's just what you want, and he's right. I don't know if those two things are congruent. And keep in mind, if he's 39 and has a kid already that he's had difficulties raising, and when I mean that, he didn't stay with the woman, his parents help out, that's what he's going on. So when you think about kids and you're like, oh, it's going to be so great, and we're going to have all these, he looks at it like the financial burden of it, and that he couldn't handle that completely. It's not as peachy for him, if that makes sense. Also, that maybe I would be better with someone else. It wouldn't be fair. More recently, he said that our goals don't seem to align. Okay, I'm sorry. So that was a very key thing. He said he wants another child, and that having a family and marriage is a nice idea. He's just not there yet. So that would really bother you, because he's not committed to that. When I asked him whether he is worried or thinks having children would impact him on progressing his goals, he said definitely. Okay. All right. So let me just get back to you guys building a better present relationship, because it sounds like you're a planner and you want some guarantees. You want some certainty. Hey, I want kids in 1 to 2 years. Hey, I want a family. He's not going to provide the guarantee. It's a possibility. It's something he's interested in. But in order for him to get there, you guys need to build a better relationship that has good intimacy, that has better in-person dates, and you're building a bigger bond so that he finds that to be more. Right now, you just have been together 7 months. He's not ready to commit to kids in a marriage. He's just not. And so this 1 to 2 year thing that you're trying to get some certainty on, this is very common for women in this age range and that want to have kids. And I know where you're coming from. I get it. What happens is, if you stay in this relationship for another 6 months, I've seen this before too with other clients. Women have come to me in private when I do my one-on-one coaching on Zoom, and they're pissed. They're pissed that they've wasted their time, that they get to 36, 35, and this guy's still saving his money, still pinching penny. And a lot of times it is a stingy thing. It's a money thing. And you're like, oh, we'll just make it happen. And he's thinking like it's going to be really expensive. And he's going to have to, give up some things. And the guy's just holding off. Um, and the woman, if she does this for another year and he doesn't commit, it's blood in the streets, man. I've had clients, I'm like, calm down. I'm on your team, hyperventilating, angry. Looking back, I seem to have played more of a supportive role, which suited his circumstances, and I feel quite used and kept on a piece of string. So this is a very common theme for, like I said, women in their early to mid 30s, because you want something so bad and you have a time frame on it. Unfortunately for men in their 40s, in their 50s, they don't have a time frame on kids. They don't have I only have 2 years and I can't have kids. They can't relate to that. So what happens is the woman feels like, oh, I was just used, or you didn't, because he didn't do what you wanted. He looks at it like, oh, we were building a relationship. I thought things were going really well. You're just on different time frames. So it's kind of like the equivalent of like, I only have 2 years to get these kids in. And it's kind of like for him, well, I don't have 2 years to have kids. I'm building my career. And that's where you're different. I don't feel like any of the communication or anything that you've mentioned to me, that he's a user or he kept you like a piece of string. I know why you're feeling that way, because he's not doing what you want him to do. I feel like he's been incredibly honest on his end and had good communication. Unfortunately for you, it's not the result you want. It's not the things you want him to say. You want him to say, oh, I want kids and I'm fully committed and I'm all in. Unfortunately for you, he's not in the same position as you, nor are you to him. And so one of the biggest things that's really difficult to understand is that we always feel, and this is one of the biggest things I've learned as a coach, hypnotherapist, and just helping people overall. Okay. I've been a teacher for 13 years. Is we always think everyone sees the world the way we see it. And so you're seeing it like, well, I want kids, I want this, and I have this time frame. Don't use me. Don't just take up my time. And he's saying, I need more time before I make that decision. If you can't wait, I understand. I also had some other goals in place that conflict with this idea, and I need to find a way to work on those. I'm saying if in the next 6 months, if you guys have better dates, better intimacy, better time together, better loving moments, maybe you're going to build towards that better. Here's the problem for you, and here's the problem for a lot of people. You want a guarantee. You want to guarantee. You're like, oh, if I do that, if we have, if we're going to go on dates, I'm going to spend time with you. I want the guarantee. I've been with you 7 months. He's not going to give you the guarantee now. Most won't. And that's hard. It's really hard. Feels like now that things are likely looking well for him, maybe in a better position, that I'm pushed to the side. I know where you're coming from reading this. I don't feel that from the narrative that I think he's being incredibly honest. I think he's just saying, hey, January is going to be a tough month. So you give him the opportunity. He asked you to go to coffee and he said, well, we could just do it on the phone. It's a bit cold. That would be an opportunity to reestablish your in-person meetings, attraction, those kinds of things. If you just don't have the patience to be in this kind of relationship and see where it heads and matriculates and grows, because you have a time, like I said, you have a time thing, 1 to 2 years. He doesn't have that. And the more you push on that, the more you get frustrated, because you feel like that's something that you want and you deserve once you're with a monogamous relationship. It hurts because we had a good relationship, which seemed real promising. I would agree. I think if you want to be more patient with this, if you want to give them a little bit more time, but you need to make a little bit more of an effort. And when I say that, a little bit, meeting in person. Now, if it bothers you that you're always driving him or he's being cheap about the train, that's a whole nother issue. That would bother a lot of people. If it bothers you that he's a bit stingy to start the relationship, that'll probably always be there. It seems like that's just part of his character. The other part that I want to give you a pat on the back, this seems like a good dude. He's just not ready for marriage and kids right now. So you've attracted a man that's um, seems like a good guy, a good partner, and you played a role in that. You guys have good communication. I don't know what your background is, but your communication is very good. And sometimes, even with good communication, you still don't get to hear what you want to hear, and you get disappointed. Everything was going well. He says so many nice things about me, yet he doesn't want to be with me. I don't think that's the case. I think he just wants more time before he commits to marriage and kids. That scares him. I know men that are in this age group, and I've been in situations where I dated women that have this biological clock ticking, and it could be a pressure cooker because, like I said, unfortunately for you guys don't have that time clock, and it's hard for them to understand where you're coming from. And they, with this day and age, and this isn't your fault, with the internet and YouTube right now pumping out all these videos to never get married and to keep playing the field and that women are going to fleece you for a bunch of money, it's really hard. But if you were more patient with him and made more of an effort to meet in person and have really good dates, it sounds like he's saying after January, I think we could see each other more. And these are real finish lines. Again, no guarantee. And that's tough. And that's why people think, and let me add something to this. People a lot of times, I'm not speaking for you, I'm just speaking from my experience of doing this for over 5 years. You think if you got married and had kids, everything would go right. And everything's going to be, like that's exactly what I wanted, and we're going to make it work. If someone's not ready for that, or if money's not right, if his career's not right, if that flat that he wants to pay off by April isn't right, he shouldn't be having kids and a family because that stress will break the relationship. So he's being responsible in that sense. But I don't think he's in any way trying to use you or discount you. What are your views on this situation as I'm trying to make sense of it? I think I gave a lot of views already. Doesn't seem like a relationship is a priority for him. Is he unsure about me? I would say that, yes, I don't think it's the top priority. He's been single for a long time. He's also working towards goals that are big, like being an electrician, making more money. It sounds like those goals are good goals. They're not stuff that you're like, what are you trying to do? And they have finish lines like, oh, in April, this will happen. Oh, in January, this will happen. That's important because if you're getting less attention, at least you can say like, well, after January, you'll have more time, right? You see what I mean? Whereas if someone like with long distance relationships, they die out because someone's like, oh, I got to live here another 6 months. I got to live here. Like, you need the finish lines of when you guys can see each other more often. It doesn't seem like a relationship is a private point. Is he unsure about me? 7 months in, I don't think it's so much about you. It's about the commitment that you want with kids. That's what he's unsure of. Does this sound legit as he plans to get January out of the way, have space, and then come back to me? The way he's communicated it, the way he's treated you, I would say if you're 7 months in and you guys have had a good relationship and you're attracted to each other and you have good camaraderie, I would say that it's already January 10th where I am. I don't know where you're at, but I would definitely make an effort on your end to go meet him for coffee and have a conversation. And then in February, say, hey, look, I want to get back to seeing each other 2 times a week. But you're not going to get that guarantee you want right now of him having kids and getting married. And that's really tough for you. And maybe in 3 months, maybe in 6 months, he might have it because he said he's open to it. He's just not going to commit to it yet. And that has nothing to do with using you or not wanting to be with you. That's a different level of commitment for a man. And so he's saying, I need more time for that. I would like to rekindle things. Thanks for your input. I think you can rekindle things really easily. He's obviously not seeing someone else. He's very busy. So I would say that if you want to rekindle things, you ask him if he wants to meet for coffee or a date and start dating again. Right. And just know that your wants and needs and commitment to this kids and family and everything like that, he's just not there yet. And a lot of guys wouldn't be there yet. And he doesn't want to be pushed into that. But he's also being responsible in the sense that I don't really have the money right now. I have these other things. All right, I hope that helps you. If anyone else wants to go to writemac.com and book a live coaching session, go to the website. I'm going to touch base with the live stream really quick. And if anyone has any direct questions, you can ask now, and then we'll get into some chat GPT created stories that are pretty funny. So let's see here. Anna, nice place. It's not my place. Can watch live, but saying hi. Paltry Flowers, always a pleasure. I appreciate you. Kyle, always a pleasure, my friend. Rob IS, haven't heard from you in a long time, but I appreciate you. Always guardian at the gate. G Dubs, how you doing? Also known as G. Fun Sawa, hey y'all, finally catching everyone in real time again. How you doing? I hope you're well. Anna, but there was really no pressure from my end to have children, coach. He worries about the future, and I think he wants a guarantee. Okay, I'm just reading to you the way I perceive the story. I'm not looking for an outcome. That's my opinion. What do you think he wants a guarantee of? Would be my question. It feels like you want the guarantee of the kids and the family, which, like I said, there's a time clock, so I understand why you'd want that. Hi, Mac. How are you? Stay safe. Well, from Jess. Right on, Jess. Let me get into the chat GP. This is going to be kind of funny. So if you go to chat GPT, and anyone's not aware of chat GPT, you can type in anything you want and they can create stories. They can create situations. It's different than Google, right? It's an AI creating whatever you want it to create. And so if you put in breakup story, it'll come up with a breakup story. And this is my point about how real breakup stories are different than the movies, right? So let's just look at write a breakup story with a London tone. That's what I wrote. You know how it was written? Once upon a time in a bustling heart of London where the Thames whispered tales of love lost and found, there lived a couple whose story took a twist sharper than a shard against the city skyline. Claire and James, a pair as inseparable as tea and biscuits, that strolled hand in hand through charming streets of Notting Hill, lost in enchanting chaos of Camden Market, and shared stolen kisses under the twinkling lights of Covent Garden. Their love was a melody echoing throughout the cobblestone alleys, a dance performed to the rhythm of Big Ben's timeless chimes. However, the winds of change swept through their relationship like the unpredictable weather of the British Isles. It began the distant whispers in the corridors of their once shared dreams, escalated into stormy arguments mirroring the tempestuous skies of above London. One gloomy evening, the couple found themselves at the edge of the River Thames, the city lights reflecting. You see how these stories are written? What a difference, right? What a difference the story is written through Chat GPT. That's an AI that wrote that. Did I just walk into a short story time? No, Ben. How you doing, bud? What I was talking about was earlier in the show is how real breakups are different than the movies. And then what we just went through is a real breakup story that was sent into writemac.com. And now I'm talking about if you put into Chat GPT a storyline and what comes up and how fake and how different it is than a real story that comes in. So I can't even get through the whole of that one, but let's see this other one. Can you write a breakup story where someone is cheated on and they are writing the story from their perspective in first person? So ChatGPT literally wrote this story in 10 seconds, right? In the heart of the city where our love once thrived, a tale of betrayal unfolded, staining the once vibrant tapestry of our relationship. It all happened in the labyrinth streets of deceit, and my heart, once a sanctuary of trust, now echoed with the haunting whispers of infidelity. It was a crisp autumn evening when I stumbled upon the undeniable evidence. hidden with the digital alleys of messages and clandestine rendezvous. As I sit here penning down the shattering chapters of our love story, I can still taste the bitter residue of the lies stained in our history. I can't even read this all. So this is a made up story, right? Let's see if we get another one. Can you write a breakup story in simple English as if it's a true story from someone that is writing about their personal experience? So it starts with once upon a time, which wouldn't be a true story. I want to tell you about something that happened to me. It's not a happy story, but it's real. We were in love, or at least I thought we were. We did everything together, shared our dreams. I found out that person I trusted the most, the one I thought would never hurt me, had been cheating on me. It hurt so much to discover the truth. I felt like the ground was pulled from under me. I confronted them with there were no excuses. They admitted it. It felt like a punch to the stomach. We decided to go our separate ways. The city around me. See, when you get stories like this, just like the movies, the details are left out. So a movie's like an hour and a half. A relationship with 3 years, you can't put it in an hour and a half. You can't. You just can't put it in an hour and a half. And there's way more feelings and questions and uncertainties in a regular one. So today I was going to add, this is kind of funny, and Ben would get a kick out of this. I had a message or a comment. It's kind of funny that one of my videos from, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago is about no contact and no social media. So I made this video where it's like 25 minutes and I kept, like, what does this pen mean to you? What does this hat mean to you? And over the years, because it's been up there a while, a lot of people comment like, wow, just get to the point, or other people really like the videos. One of those videos, some people like it, some people hate it. Some people, it's long-winded. Some people go, oh, wow, that was really thoughtful. So someone wrote me today that, why didn't you get to the point? Let me pull this up really quick because I think it's funny. So she says, you have a 23-minute video. You get to the point on the 12th minute, then go off point again. Try a different hobby than videos. So my response, thank you for your opinion, Grace. Some love this video, some hated it. I'm wondering, if you didn't like it so much, why would you watch it all the way through just to leave a comment like this? I wouldn't be surprised if someone is in no contact with you. All the best. If you want to book a session, go to writemac.com. Now, here's the funny thing. The same video. Mac, this is really good advice. Great way to kill the anxiety. It takes away your mind from roaming and flips the script on your ex. It makes them wonder about you instead of you trying to guess. Another person, love this. Another person, thanks for this video. I'm going to break from the social media. Another person, thank you. I had an awful breakup. So it's just interesting that someone makes a comment, right? It's all right. Like I said, thank you for your opinion. It counts. And they think they're so right. But then you leave like something nasty, like try a different hobby than videos. It's like, now you don't like the video. You want to make a couple comments. It's like, you're obviously looking at no contact videos because you're in a breakup, right? I could definitely see why someone will break up with an individual that you're just nasty. You watched a 23, and that's the thing. The interesting thing about YouTube, there's a lot of other videos. There's a lot of people out there. So if you don't like someone's approach, watch a different video. You taking the time to comment negatively just says something about your individual character. And if you're in a breakup, I could see why someone would say, yeah, I don't want to interact with this individual anymore. Kind of ironic, right? All righty. So let me just review if anyone else on deck has a take on this. How real breakups are different than the movies. Number one, it's the movies, drama mixed with good endings and dreamy outcomes. Is that really how breakups go down? Not really. Number two, they just magically meet someone new. This happens all the time in movies. They're out of the breakup, and 10 minutes later in the movie, um, it feels like they just met someone that's a real prize. It's just not common in real breakups. Number three, they never mention no contact in movies too much. That would be a boring movie. So there's never a period where someone's in no contact and they're by the windowsill and they're just walking the streets aimlessly. It's just not common, right? Which no contact is probably common for 60% of breakups. People have to go through it for a little while. Number four, the people are always good looking and don't have to worry about losing weight or hitting the gym. It's very common when I talk to people, they're like, oh, I need to hit the gym. Oh, I need to do this. They want to improve themselves. They see some holes in their abilities to get someone in the future. But in movies, it's usually not the case. Number five, there's usually an ending where there's usually an ending in a breakup movie, whether that's good, bad, happy, or sad. A lot of breakups don't really have an ending. Sometimes people get ghosted. Sometimes people feel like they weren't told the truth. Sometimes people feel like they were just cut off. Number six, they seem to always come back. This seems to be, even if you don't get back together long term, in breakup movies, it always feels like they get back together or they get a chance. That's not common for everyone. Where the person just doesn't meet someone for 6 months or a year, it takes a break. Again, boring movie. It would be a boring movie if they didn't come back, right? I mentioned my favorite breakup movies. One of them's High Fidelity. Check that one out with John Cusack. I think what's interesting about that movie, he's reflecting on all these relationships while he owns a record shop. Doesn't seem to be highly successful, doesn't make a lot of money, but yet was able to pull 7 different women with different backgrounds that are highly attractive. Is that possible? Yeah. Likely. There's an expiration date on record shop owners that aren't successful business wise. They're just getting by and their options dwindling as they get older. Can I be proven wrong? Yeah, sure. Why real breakups are different, the nuanced stories and perspective, the details are more surprising. Okay. All right, folks, it's been good. It's been grand. I want to thank Smokey the Cat, Paltry Flowers, Anna, Kyle, always a pleasure. Rob IS, you are appreciated. G, Francois, Anna, Jess. I'll be back on deck again soon. Just getting my legs under me here in California, getting used to this cold weather. But I'll probably be around the next couple of days also. So go to writemac.com if you want to book a live coaching session or get your story read. Otherwise, have a good one. It's curtains.